Okay, David, you mentioned extremism.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little
Well,
bit
what
more?
I said at the end of the last session was that we're entering, which is not my view alone, that we're entering an age of extremes, of polarization, extreme left and extreme right, the rise of fascism, but also I think the rise of an intolerant, hysterical political correctness on the left, um, and polarization of all issues. So what's lost in all of this is the grounds of rationality, sensibility, moderation between extremes. So, for example, those who are now arguing for moderation politically, for example, are getting marginalised. You notice that a lot of the Tory grandees, since we're here, people like Kenneth Clark or Michael Heseltine, saying, "Oh, on this Brexit stuff, we've got to have a plan B. We're going too far. We can't just jettison Europe completely, um, or we shouldn't be doing so at all." Those voices of what the Japanese call the wise elder, the sensei, SENSEI, are being lost or are being marginalized or not as important. Some would say I'm one to talk. I've gone through a voyage of passage of someone who was very left wing at one level, and I still am on one level, but I'm also very conservative at one level now as well. And once you lose sight of, once everything becomes hysterical and sensationalized and overreactive, which is a product of neoliberalism, the shock doctrine. So we have a terrorism problem, we react with draconian legislation, increasing the problem. For example, in France, we introduce banning and criminalization of wearing burqas, hijabs in all public places. Well, of course, that only makes the Muslim community more ghettoized and feel more incendiary because of this. So extremism is breeding extremist counter reactions in cultural terms. Much of it is wrapped up in religion. I think what really people don't get, and it's an epoch unprecedented in human history since I think the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, is religious extremism is not just back, it's winning and it's controlling the agenda at all sorts of levels. Now, there is the demonization, and you see it even in the great Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, of Islam and Islamic fundamentalism, which led, of course, to Hitchens' unfortunate support of Bushian wars and things like that. And there is no doubt, of course, because of the acts of real terrorism and real violence perpetrated by Islamic fundamentalists, both in America and France and Denmark, and all the beheadings and so on, that there is a rise in Islamic fundamentalism, which is, of course, being, at one level, precipitated by actions taken against Islam by the West, to extremism breeding extremism. But what's lost in the mix of this, now Hitchens didn't lose it completely, is Christian fundamentalism. And Chomsky hit the nail on the head, and I mentioned earlier when he said that, one of the most evil organization in human history, which I entirely agree with, is the Republican Party of America. And one of the reasons it's so evil is the rise of extreme jihadist Christian fundamentalism, fused with shock and terror tactics. It is true of an Islamic or Christian fundamentalist that once you believe in life after death and God, all bets are off as to what you can do to people, which is what they engage in doing. And the Catholic fundamentalists are equally despicable. The kind of jihadist youth defence in Dublin, going after people because they disagree with them in a mad, hysterical fervour of jihadist behaviour, and they're controlled and indulged by many of the decision makers in Dublin. I did say recently, I think Catholic intelligentsia in Ireland is an oxymoron, a contradiction in terms. Now, I'd imagine that's a sort of flippant remark they would react rather badly to, but I intend them to react rather badly to it, since I don't like them at all and think they do very little good. But this religious extremism should not neglect at one level, and here I'm not with Christopher Hitchens or Dawkins, the embracer of agnostic extremism or atheistic extremism. I mean, Hitchens reached the point that there was no rational proof or cognitive proof of the existence of God, and therefore as a concept, he wasn't even going to engage in an argument with him. Well, who knows? How can he know? How can anyone really know? And there is a measure of decency in organized religion, which has created elements of social control and restraints which are breaking down. And not all, much of it is good, but some of it was, and some of it should be retained. And in that context, the kind of Christian socialism that came out of South America, which Pope Francis reflects, is a good thing. If the church, I read to a Jesuit priest recently, much to his horror, and he didn't respond, if they spent less time focusing on who slept with whom and more time focusing on healthcare, housing, and social and economic rights, then I'd have more time for them. I have time for some people who are like that. So we've got an age of religious extremism, coupled, of course, with the agenda of the Christian fundamentalists in America, which is to use propaganda, as Steve Bannon does, to hoover up all the assets for themselves and screw everybody else. And which Mr. Trump, of course, recently comes over on his trip to Britain and says, by the way, post-Brexit, we have a trade agreement, we'll grab the NHS. He means it, you know. And this is all really ridiculous and really worrying, but it's also inevitable, because I think part of the clutch on of extreme religion is because there is a sense that things have gone so far, are so out of control, we're at the end of days. And that is creating more of this bullshit. It's contributing to it. Now, the point about it is, there's a gremlin of truth in it, because all of the evidence indicates, Carlos Rovelli, the physicist, and others say that in 60 years there'll be mass extinction, certainly of all the animals and of much people. Or those people will be ghettoized and lead marginal existence, will have to be disposed of. You see these fascistic corporate terms coming in all over the place, misuse and production of language. And we are entering a phase of economic and environmental catastrophe, because neoliberalism is committed to unchecked economic growth that is not sustainable, with no sense of development and no sense of the authorization of any Kyoto Accord or anything to check the rapacious destruction of the environment. Within that framework, you can see why people embrace, Opus Dei, the Church of Scientology, the Christian right, Islamic fundamentalism, and all sorts of bullshit. But these people embracing that, whether in Trump's case, in a cynical way, are getting places. It suits their interests to say these things. It is also the case, I think, finally, that I mentioned how the left has become extreme, and we mentioned that transgenderism thing as well. But political correctness has destroyed so much. Because it's expurgated from the culture of fearless criticism. It's destroyed the relationships between men and women. That doesn't mean you're a sexist or anything like that, but all mechanisms of social control of appropriate and inappropriate behavioral patterns, true political correctness, have self-censored the culture, both in terms of people's interactions with each other, what they can say, and it's destroying the culture of open personal debate. The example I gave in the paper finally was this. Winston Churchill, who saved the world, is in the House of Commons pissed as a mute. Lady asked her, someone comes up to him. She says, Sir Winston, you are drunk. He says, yes, I am. But I will be sober in the morning and you will still be ugly. Today, he'd get carpeted and fired. And the Nazis would win. It's getting crazy. Political correctness is madness, which is not, of course, to condone measures of respect.